The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Get more at servingworlds.com. The smoke was lessening, but still roiled through the air above Government Row, as the words on the side of the mothership migrated to the top and bottom of the craft's massive sides, and pictures appeared in between. Earth, and the moon beyond it. A bright blue line arcing up the terminator between the curve of the world and the black of space. "We know where you're from, assholes," Samin sighed. The moon and Earth disappeared, the image swinging to the left. Stars careened by, and then a collection of ships swung into frame. Wisps of blue, green, and violet light surrounded them. A convoy. "Reach Colony 2347, flashed onto the screen, above numbers flashing by on a countdown clock. T-minus 3 hours, 22 minutes. Lee had seen similar scenes play out 11 times in his life. The sped-up visuals showed ships clustering together, far enough apart that they likely wouldn't crash into each other when the fold happened, and the churn of gravity and magnetism surged around them, far enough from the edges of the fold to prevent ships being left behind, outside the fold's bubble of space-time or crushed on its periphery. Was this some kind of propaganda tool? Lee was suspicious of any Earther messaging, but this video was minimalistic, the images neutral. He couldn't fathom the point of it. They'd already surrendered. If it wasn't a ploy, then what more was there to say? Lee got his answer quickly. The video record of the fold turned from documentary to nightmare at T-minus 1 hour, 41 minutes. The camera reversed its grand pan back to Earth and the moon. Something else was different now. Lee stared hard at the image for a moment before he caught it. There were blues, violets, and reds streaking across the sky above Earth, too. One fold event incoming, one on the cusp of leaving? Never happened before. Lee wondered what the odds of such a fluke were. Long, that was for sure. Small, dark spots raced across the blue backdrop of Earth as minutes of real time raced by for every second displayed. "What kind of ships are—" Jake's voice faded away as the dark spots spread out over the Earth. Some shrunk and disappeared beneath the clouds. Others continued on to surround the moon. The camera's eye careened through space. The moon hurtled into view. Explosions appeared on its surface before the camera zoomed closer to one of the strange orbiting spots. "What are they? What the fuck are they?" Jake gasped. Shut up, Samin hissed. Lee tried to look away, but he couldn't. He needed to know. Not a ship. A thing. An enormous thing. Whipping tentacles writhed beneath a segmented body wrapped in shining black shell. Topping the horror was a head, or seed pod, or something. Spiky, waving hairs, or cilia, or Lee didn't know what, wafted from the top of it, in the vacuum of space. The horror was shot through with putrid glowing veins of yellow and green. Smaller versions of itself crawled along its entire length. "First contact?" Captain Carson slurred through her face mask. Lee didn't respond. The camera whirled back to Earth. "Oh, fuck," Jake moaned, pain and horror bleeding through the vulgar words. White flashes burst through the clouds over the east coast of North America, over the UK, over Asia, over Africa. Small holes appeared in the cloud cover, rippling wider and wider. White arcs of electricity and explosion danced across the face of the world. The camera whipped through space to capture something much closer than the burning Earth. Lee screamed in shock. Everyone flinched or cried out. Jake fell backwards, tumbling to the ground, when another of the things appeared. The tentacle end of one of those things raced towards the camera filming the carnage. In the middle of the whipping black appendages. Fangs? Lee wondered. Or barbs? Or stingers? In the center of the quivering mass was a mouth or other orifice. Orange-white heat radiated from the spasming hole. The segmented body above the tentacle-fringed opening compressed tighter, accordion fashion, and then exploded outwards. An unconscious sound of disgust escaped Samin's mouth. Globules of liquid or plasmid, glowing hot, accelerated towards the camera, and the screens went black. Jesus! Jake put his head in his hands. He looked back wordlessly at Lee, at Samin, then clutched his scalp in both hands. Jesus! He gasped again. In the sky above, the entire image played again, and again. No one looked away. No one spoke. In between each replay, the same words filled the black screen. Gov surrenders. Humanity is at war. The takers are coming. Lee! Jake shook Lee's thigh. The pain finally overrode his shock and stupor. He looked away from the nightmare playing out again on the side of the ship. He met Jake's eyes, then looked where Jake looked. He took in the toppled statues and destroyed buildings. The smells of war. It had all been for nothing, Lee realized. It meant nothing. The war, a wasteful squabble among siblings compared to what he'd just seen, was over, and both sides lost. The real war was coming. Jake shoved his leg again and pointed. Reacher soldiers were emerging from the storm of smoke and dust, walking into the row with weapons powered down, slung, or holstered. The slack shock on the ground troops' faces made them look more like the victims of a sneak attack than the almost victors they were. Well, Lee supposed they were both. He watched an IRC officer stop to check on a Gov soldier lying in the street. The soldier was dead. The officer marched past. More Reachers marched on by, and some spat and kicked at the body as they went by. Lee struggled backwards to raise his body over Captain Carson's. "We got her, Lee," Samin promised, easing him back down to the ground. "We'll keep her safe." The woman in question was also trying to rise. The face mask muffled her words. She pointed to the left, the way they'd come. Lee couldn't grasp the words. Carson made it easy for him by peeling the mask back. "Smokey!" she gasped. Still not comprehending, Lee followed her finger. Just in time to see an Earth mech, smoke roiling from its back from a recent attack, raise both arms. Lee watched its tri-cannon spit fire. He saw Jake jerk from impact after impact, blood spraying out of his back. He heard Samin grunt and watched the force of a bullet send her tumbling too. Lifting himself on one elbow, he pulled Captain Carson's body down behind his. Too late. He saw blood spray out of her chest a moment before the bullet entered the back of his head. You have been listening to Reach, The Road to War. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, All This by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Hear more of the story at ServingWorlds.com. Thank you for listening.